Hello and welcome to the latest London Southeast CEO interview. My name's Ed Bauscher and today I'm joined by John Mahtani, the CEO of Media Tech SPAC or MTS. MTS is a special purpose acquisition company or SPAC, and it's aiming to invest in young companies in the media and technology sectors. MTS is aiming to IPO on the London market this year. So John, thanks very much for joining us and welcome to London Southeast.
Thank you, Ed. It's an absolute pleasure for having me.
Good.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction, and it's a privilege to finally get on LSE.
Brilliant. Well, could you just start off by giving us an introduction to MTS and what you're aiming to achieve?
Sure. Well, MTS came about back in March of this year when I was approached by Brian Kinane. Brian is executive chairman of Riverfort Global Capital. And Brian basically said, look, I want to bring a series of SPACs to the market with a view for us to provide alternative type of financing for companies that are in sort of seed and potential growth stage. And so I accepted the offer because I thought it was something that I hadn't done before, having been in previous ventures where I've been in the corporate environment, I've been in a sort of private environment before. And this was my first opportunity to list a business on the London Stock Exchange.
And why did you go for the SPAC model where you will list? Why didn't you set up as a venture capital fund?
Well, we basically have an intention to acquire one business. And if we're looking to acquire one business, as opposed to making a series of investments, we want to help nurture and grow that business. So traditional VC models, they tend to put money in and then they maybe appoint maybe one director onto the board. But from our perspective, what we want to do is we've got a lot of experience and know-how in building businesses, growing businesses, and then effectively selling those businesses. So we want to use that skill set to help young businesses who we feel we can nurture, develop, and then successfully grow and sell.
But you're aiming just to invest in one company initially, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
But will you then broaden out from that later?
Yes, I mean, initially the plan will be to take, we're looking at two or three things in the company we're looking for. We're looking for strong management teams. We're looking for businesses with innovative technology. But the third piece, which is, now you'll understand a little bit clearer about our strategy, is to be able to take that business global, hence the sort of globe behind me, because we have aspirations to want to be able to take businesses where we feel the technology can cross borders. We're not looking for specifically UK type businesses. We're looking for businesses that can travel across the globe. And the reason we want to do that is if you look at the resumes of the three of us of the board, between myself, Rick and Celia, we're all international executives. Just to tell you a little bit about the team, I was at Warner Brothers for 19 years. Over that period, I was delivering content to 53 countries across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. When we worked on a Harry Potter, we would have to deliver content to 120 countries. So I established a very, very strong network across the globe by dealing with lots of different entities and lots of different stakeholders who would help us participate on that delivery of that content. And so we want to leverage those relationships in the technology that we find so we can help the business, not just from a say-so perspective, but actually open doors for them and actually add lots of value in terms of helping them grow their revenue and making them profitable, and then potentially making them be a target for acquisition by somebody else.
But do you focus more on the media side here or the technology side, or is it both?
A combination of both. We're looking for technology companies within the media space. Although our remit is relatively strong, we are looking at areas like cybersecurity, fintech, immersive technologies. We're looking at social media platforms, but we feel that if we can find businesses within the media space that provide technology services to those media companies, that's where our Rolodex will come out and really help that business open its doors to some of those, whether it may be a studio or maybe it be an independent production company. We feel that that's where our strength is, in terms of our relationships.
Now, you mentioned your two fellow senior executives, but could you just tell us a bit more about your background and their background?
Sure. Well, I'm a chartered accountant by trade. I joined the media industry back in 1993. I was working for Universal and Paramount Pictures originally. after having a great 2.5-year career there, I then decided to join Warner Brothers. The great thing about Warner's was I ended up there for 19 years, but because I was there at a time where there was so much change going on in the industry, we saw the emergence of cinemas coming in, we saw lots of new technology coming to the market, we saw the whole profile of the industry change. If you look at how we were consuming content 30 years ago, you had a VHS player, 3 stations on a television, and you also then had a local cinema with 3 screens. Fast forward to today, you've got a proliferation of devices. You've got a satellite channel that provides you with at least 100 channels, and you go to your local multiplex and you'll be surprised if there's at least not 10 screens there. So the industry has never been busier, and the consumption for content is peaking and just growing bigger and bigger and bigger.
And what sort of time scale? Actually, what about your colleagues? Just briefly on them.
Sure. So Rick, I have to pinch myself on. He's my chairman, because when I look at his resume, for me, he's a chairman that is incredibly accomplished. He's somebody I aspire to. I met Rick back in 1995 when he was head of legal and business affairs at Warner Brothers. We just from day one, we just hit it off. And so when I was looking to appoint a chairman, it was a no-brainer for me that the first person I was going to go and speak to was Rick. Just to talk to you about some of Rick's accomplishments. Rick is somebody who, he's a lawyer by trade, so we have a good balance as a board. I'm an accountant, he's a lawyer, so our skills sort of blend very well from a board perspective. But he's got a tremendous resume, and as I said to you, I literally genuinely have to pinch myself to sort of, I'm privileged to be working with somebody of that sort of caliber and category. But Rick was the guy who did the deal with J.K. Rowling in '97 to acquire the rights of all the 8 Harry Potter books. Did we honestly realize in the studio what he just landed? Nobody knew that this was going to be potentially the biggest film franchise in box office history. He was very closely linked to Stanley Kubrick when he was alive. He dealt with lots of key filmmakers, whether it was Bertolucci or Clint Eastwood. I don't really have enough time to talk about it.
Okay.
Just consume one interview on him.
He sounds very impressive. So you've got the time scale. You're hoping to make this investment in a company. Is there any deadline by which you have to get this investment done?
The only thing we're restricted to we're listing on the London Stock Exchange on the standard list. On the standard list, you have up to 2 years to do a deal. Yeah. And so that's the sort of time frame. But can I just come back to my other colleague? Otherwise, I don't want to be in the boat. Okay. Just to finish on Rick very quickly. Rick then went on an entrepreneurial journey in 2001. He basically started the Harry Potter stores and then successfully sold them back to a major US studio. He is also chairman of Mad Dog Casting, which is a really good, reputable casting agency. He was on the board of Cineworld for 10 years and on the board of Bank Lumi. And then heading over to our third colleague, Celia Lee. Celia is definitely the most dynamic of the three of us. She's an international media executive. She presents on Phoenix Television, which is has a subscriber base of over 500 million viewers across the world. She's done a fabulous job in all of our comms. She handles all of the investor communications. She was the one who kindly prepared my script today, so I'm very thankful to her from that perspective. So again, from a small cap company, you don't necessarily see a chief media officer on a small cap business, but we think communication to our stakeholders, whether they're shareholders or potential investors, is really, really important.
Okay, we're getting a bit short on time, John, but I would just like to find out a bit more. How long do you imagine you might stay invested in this business, and what are the potential exit strategies?
Right. So, as I said to you, we're looking to acquire a business. I would hope that we can acquire a potential target by the end of the year. And then going into 2022, we'd look to help grow that business for the next 2 to 3 years. And by that stage, hopefully we get to enough of a size for somebody else to want to potentially take us out. That would be the sort of simple strategy in my mind.
John, very interesting to talk to you. Really fascinating. Thank you very much for joining us. And that you've been listening to John Mahtani. He's the CEO of Media Tech SPAC. We'll be coming back with another London Southeast video soon. Don't forget you can follow our videos on YouTube at our YouTube page, London Southeast, or follow us on Twitter at London Southeast. Do join us again soon. Thank you. Goodbye.